Hey everyone, this is Jen. You're watching BPD Woman. On this channel, you will learn how to more effectively live with your borderline personality disorder. My goal is to help you reach your goals by sharing my personal experience living, dealing, researching, and managing my disorder for the last 20 years, along with relying on DBT skills and my own experience of doing about 5 to 6 rounds of DBT. My goal is to help you realize your goals, whatever they may be, whether you're looking to have more stability in your career, increased financial income, less emotional ability, or working more on your interpersonal effectiveness goals. Whatever it is you hope to find, I hope that you find it here. If you are a family member or a person interested in borderline personality disorder, you are also in the right place. And there is a video playlist just for you entitled Tools and Resources for the Family, Vids for You. My approach is a positive-based solution approach. That means that I will share topics, situations that I find problematic, certain triggers, and then along with relying on DBT skills, I will offer my own personal insights and advice on how to most effectively manage those situations. And while I am not a PhD or a psychologist, I am somebody who can answer the following question, which is, what is it like to live with borderline personality disorder? And while those other folks have the degree, they do not have the disorder. And so personally, in my experience, their scope of understanding remains relatively limited. And so I hope that along with an intellectual basis, I can offer you the aspect of someone who knows what you're going through. And also, if you have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or you just have trouble handling your emotions or expressing yourself, you can also benefit. So please check it out. All right, I produce about 3 to 5 videos each week. So every time there's something new, I also take video suggestions. So if you have one, please send them on through. And if that all sounds good to you, please hit subscribe and the bell below so you never miss a beat. Okay, let's get into it. So I'm going to read and throw up a comment here from my last video, which was entitled The Surprising Reasons Why People May Not Like You and Why That Is a Good Thing. And in this 20-minute video, and take a look, I'll put up a link, I discussed that sometimes, for those of us with BPD or other emotion regulation issues, or if you're just a highly sensitive person, things become more amplified for you. I've used this analogy of having fibromyalgia, right? That we feel something that others may not see. We may have a pain that feels like a 10, where to others it may feel like a 2. And so things and feelings and situations can become very amplified and overwhelming for you. And when I feel overwhelmed with those emotions and situations, I shut down. I don't think cognitively. I don't think effectively. And so, I've used this other phrase that when emotion is high, logic is low, which means when you're in a dysregulated, heightened state, when there's a lot going on or you feel emotionally overwhelmed, your ability to think cognitively goes out the window. Before I get into the rest of this description, I will say that, this happened to me the other day. I had to go to an urgent care, had a silly accident at home. I'm fine. But I was like, let me just go to the urgent care just to check it out. Not something that I really wanted to do. I'm trying to stay out of doctor's offices and dental offices as much as possible right now. So they handled my situation great. It was very professional, very cleanly. I would give it an A+. But, they had staggered seating, and on some of these seats, it would say, this seat closed, choose another seat. That way, people wouldn't congregate in the waiting room. So I had been there about 25 minutes. The nurse called me back, took my information, and then I went back to sit in this seat that I was sitting at, which I had disinfected with a wipe, right? And I'm sitting there, and so here's my row, and then there's some movable chairs, also another row, maybe about 3 feet in front of me. And while the left chair had a sign on it that says, please don't sit here, the one on the right did not. And so I sat down again, I'm waiting for them to call me back so that I can have my appointment. And then this chick she just sits down in front of me, and I'm like seeing that I'm sitting there, and I had been sitting there, right? And I'd cleaned off the chair, and I had gotten to the clinic before her, and I said, excuse me, I said, is it possible that you could please sit, over here? This seat's open, it's 6 feet away, that gives us distance. She looked at me and she's like, no, I was here first. And I stood up, and I was like, no, actually you were not. I was here first. And, I started off nicely, I was being completely reasonable, right? And the next thing I knew, I almost started to like she sat back down, like she was going to defy me. Like, for what fucking reason? I don't know. Like, why would you want to risk anyone's health, your own? Like, how do you know I don't have COVID? I don't, by the way. But how do you know? Wouldn't the normal person just move? Okay. No, she don't want to do that. So I found myself, I almost started to lift up the chair, and I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're gonna get fucking arrested, right? So a nurse came out, and I asked her to help mitigate. Okay, and then that crazy bitch, she went to another chair. But the problem, what I'm trying to demonstrate is that my emotion and dysregulation got very high. I felt my safety get threatened. I felt I was being disrespected, Those are two big things for me. She said mean shit. Well, if you don't like it, you can go sit some other place. And I'm like, right. Okay. So now did I like where that was starting to go? No. Did I have a right to stick up for myself? Yes. Did I stop myself before things went to a point of no return, and then I wouldn't have met my goal, which was be seen by the doctor? Don't be arrested, get home to your animals, there's no one else to take care of them. No, I wouldn't have. So it did get diffused and everything was fine. But the point of that kind of tangent there was to illustrate that when your emotions are running very high, or when you think you're being threatened, I felt I was being threatened with my safety, just maintain 6 feet, or someone's not listening to you, things can start spiraling. And so we're going to kind of talk about that today in a way that can be very problematic. And that is if you are living with someone. And so that's today's topic, borderline personality disorder in living situations, how to cope if you are living in a situation that's either uncomfortable or untenable without betraying your goals and keeping yourself emotionally regulated. I have I believe it's a new subscriber. And so this subscriber commented on the last video I did entitled "The Surprising Reasons Why People May Not Like You." And I'm gonna throw up a screenshot here of what this person said. I'm not sure if you're a man or a woman. Nonetheless, thank you for tuning in, whoever wrote this. And please keep your comments coming. They're wonderful. I love the feedback. And then I'm going to read my reply, and then I'm going to tell you how I came to this topic today. So this person says, this was real. And so basically the point of the video that this person was commenting on was people may not like you, and it sometimes doesn't have anything to do with your BPD or that you're a bad person, but that sometimes people just don't like you because either you're not putting up with their bullshit, or you're not sticking to their status quo, or you're starting to assert yourself or change your things that you want, or ask for things. People don't like that. Sometimes people don't like the pushback. They like the status quo. They don't want to give you your room. Anyway, so this is what this person said. This was really well timed. I live with someone who I have a big problem with. We don't like each other, and it's very obvious. I feel physically stressed, and I end up going numb to avoid explosive behavior or thinking. A very honest comment, so thank you. I've been there myself. I wrote, I'm glad it can be helpful, although I'm really just sorry to hear your living situation is a tough one. I have been there. Nothing like not being able to feel safe, relaxed, at ease in your home. I'm sure now with the pandemic, it's even amplified. Your comment gave me an idea for a video. Watch for it soon and hang in there. We all have our safe places, right? Places that we go to where, that old saying, my home is my castle. It's where I can feel safe. And man, isn't that the truth, right? Your home generally should be a place where you feel safe, that you can unwind, where you can be relaxed, that if you want to come home and cry or eat a bucket of ice cream, you can feel comfortable to do that without judgment, and that generally speaking, your physical and emotional and spiritual safety feels intact where you live. Now, obviously this person is, and I hope I'm not overreaching here, but this doesn't sound like this person who commented is having a safe space to go home to. And if anything, this situation is triggering to their symptoms. And they haven't told me they have BPD, but for me, I'll put my own self in this. This situation would be triggering for my BPD symptoms. And I have a joke, people ask me, oh, do you have a roommate? And I said, no, I would sell drugs to live alone. And we all have a laugh, and it's a funny little thing that I say, but it's not really like I would donate my plasma to live alone. I've probably lived alone now for the last decade. Yeah. Aside of like a 3-month period, I've basically lived by myself for the last decade. And, I have lived with people before, and, I was married once, and I've had roommates in college, but that was a long time ago. I'm in my early 40s. I'm 41 years old. So, kind of that time that I put in with like living with people is sort of, a little bit past for me right now. Now, I know that certainly I could save more money, or I might be in a different financial situation if I was able to live with other people and save that money. However, I also know that especially in my late 20s and early 30s, when I was really digging in my heels in my mid-late 30s, when I was really digging in to try to get my BPD under control, I knew that living with someone could be way more problematic. It could lead to fights, it could lead to financial instability, it could lead to, one person breaking the lease, creating legal trouble. So I knew for me, I was basically trading one for the other. Now, I understand that everyone may not be in that position, right? Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go over 5 steps that you can use to strategize and either help with your living situation, cope where you are, or develop a plan to change your situation. The overarching goal here for all of this is that you stay regulated, safe, whether that's financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and that you don't compromise or go back on any of your goals that are very important to you. I just did a video entitled Goal Setting. Check it out. And you can use your goal sets here to apply it to your living situation. Okay. All right. Number 1. The first tip that I want to offer to you is to, while in a regulated state, assess the severity of your living situation. And you can kind of add like a separate addendum to this, which is called check the facts. Okay, so check the facts is a skill in DBT, and essentially it's designed to help challenge any emotional or dysregulated thinking, to kind of bring you back in that gray area of thinking or the colored thinking rather than being in black and white. Okay, so here's an example. I'm renting currently, but my goal is to buy a house sometime this year. And before I lived at this place, I lived in a really terrible place. I mean, we're talking the management was doing illegal things. We're talking about that at one of the properties there were actually some deaths, a very highly publicized case here where I live due to not like due to a murder. It was like a maintenance malfunction thing. It went to court. Anyway, you could read about it in the paper. I'm not saying anything that they don't, know happened. And just bullies for managers, just things that I knew blatantly were illegal and not true. But because the majority of the population in this building were either, what I would call vulnerable groups, so either immigrants or people whose first language was not English, or just, people that didn't have a lot of money or felt they didn't have the resources to challenge some of this illegal bullshit, they were kept quiet by bullying. Well, I'm if you've watched some of my videos, you know I'm not in the business of being bullied and keeping my mouth quiet when something wrong is taking place. So for 5 years, I lived there, and then it came to a couple of situations where this manager called the cops on me because I was arguing with her in her office, and she told me that she would have me evicted and I was trespassing, all this other shit. So, the cops came, they're like, look, we think she's loco. There's nothing we're going to do. You're not in trouble, but maybe moving would be a better option. So I did. That day, I got onto like Trulia. I got on to looking for apartments, and they did. They didn't technically evict me. They didn't renew my lease because I was on a month-to-month lease at that point. So in this state that I live in, it's totally legal. They can just, say we're not renewing your lease next month. But the reason they weren't renewing it is because they were trying to do some illegal stuff, and I was pushing back on them. Needless to say, that situation I would rate is very severe and untenable, right? And so you're going to, in this first step, you're going to assess the severity of your situation so that the next steps you can work out a game plan. Okay, so this situation I would say was a D- F+ to my safety, okay? Now, the place that I live now is better. There's no black mold. My apartment's much nicer. I feel more comfortable. I don't feel like the management does anything illegal. Illegal in the sense of, right, like not trying to evict people. In fact, I think that they're honestly almost the opposite. I think they're a little bit too lax. And so I have a lot of issues living here. I'm just basically at a point now at my age and my mindset where I just don't want to rent anymore, and I don't want to share a firewall with anyone. Even if I have to move 40 miles away, I want like a single family home. I don't want to have neighbors that I can hear. So there's been a lot of issues that I've had with this place. And I mean, some are pretty egregious, like hot water, air conditioning, heat goes out pretty frequently, including on Christmas Eve. So I get aggravated at this place. I don't like this place. But in my regulated state, I don't fear that they're going to try to evict me, right, for some nonsense reason. So I would say my overall feeling of safety here is a B+. So that leads us to step 2, right? Step 2 is to make a plan and use your cope ahead skills, okay? So in step 1, you addressed and assessed the severity of the situation, right? So you use the check the facts. Now you're going to use another DBT skill, which is cope ahead. And I have produced a video about how to make a cope ahead list. You can cope ahead for situations, people, events, holidays, literally anything that could be triggering or dysregulating or problematic for you. You can create a cope ahead. Put it right on your phone, keyword search it. Anytime you feel there's an issue coming up, you can look at it quickly to stop that roll. So 2 situations here under cope ahead. What you're going to do now is, based on the information that you got in step 1, you're going to get some action plans moving, right? So let's say that you have addressed your situation. You're like, okay, I don't like it. It's uncomfortable, but I don't feel like I'm in danger. It's tenable. I don't need to move right now. Okay, which is the situation that I currently find myself in, right? It's okay for now, but it's not something I want to be in long term. Like when my lease is up, I want to be out of here. Okay. So my now I'm coping ahead by planning an exit strategy. So what does that mean? Well, I'm getting all my stuff ready to do taxes in January so that by February I can start applying for mortgages, right? My lease is up in October, so I have 10 months ahead of me to file for taxes, try to get a mortgage, and if I can't get a mortgage, plan something else. I'm getting alerts on Trulia every day, right? I'm searching trends, like I'm making notes to myself on my iPhone about things that I would need to do to prepare for a move to buy a house and how that would impact me. So that's my cope ahead. That's my exit strategy, okay? It's an action plan designed to prepare you. Now, however, like for instance, another example is when I was in college in the late 90s, I had several roommates come in and out of when I was living in a dorm. But one of them, this little smarty smarts, she was stealing my clothes. And we're talking about like, they were nice clothes. They were like from the Limited and Express. I mean, we're talking like a couple $100 worth of clothes. And she had this boyfriend, and she's like, oh no, it wasn't me. It's like, well, my clothes didn't walk off by themselves, right? And so she swore she didn't take them. But then the boyfriend, this is what he did. He came, he's like, how much money can I give you to make this go away? That's what he said. Like I'm in like a mobster movie. So obviously he was, he knew something, like she did something. So I don't know what ever became of that situation, but I knew after that, like she started spending more and more time at her boyfriend's. So instead of at the dorm, so that worked out. And like, then the next term, I like just got my own off-campus apartment. But let's say that you can't, you can't live there anymore. It's too untenable. So let's go back to my situation with the place that I lived prior to this one that was doing illegal activity. Okay, so I made a game plan. Like I knew what dirty tricks the property management might get up to. I knew what dirty tricks they would get up to. So I prepared myself. I started calling attorneys, and I got an attorney, and I had that attorney write a letter, right? And so that showed them that I meant business and that they weren't going to bulldoze me. And by spending, $400 for this attorney to write a letter, it basically helped to diffuse the situation. I moved out, no problems. They gave me my entire deposit back, where a lot of people, if you would read the online reviews of this place, nobody got a deposit back. So the coping ahead in both of these situations worked for me. But let's say, you are living in this place right now and you can't move, right? Let's say it's untenable and you have to get out, just like I had in my first example, and your lease isn't up for 7 months and you don't have the money to break the lease, or you don't have a car right now, or you don't have the money to move, or whatever the situation may be. Keep thinking of what your end game is, right? If your end game is keep my job to keep making money so I can move out and become better, pay for therapy, get a house, whatever, become more stable, then create, getting into escalated arguments or, risking being arrested can really work against you. If your emotion is becoming really problematic and it's starting to take you off of your goal path, well, and believe me, I've been there, right? Like I've thrown a few punches in my lifetime. You don't want to be arrested, right? I mean, I couldn't be arrested right now. I mean, I don't generally think of ways not to be arrested each day, but I'm saying, like I live alone and I have my pets and I have my business. If I get arrested, like who's going to take care of my pets, What are my clients going to think when I don't show up? Like none of that works out well, right? So it's hard in the moment when that emotion is high, logic is low, but that's why you write the cope ahead and you remind yourself, I don't want to get into a fight because of this, right? And this doesn't mean that, you may really want to punch this person in the face. Believe me, I've been there. You may really want to tell this person off. Believe me, I've been there. And it doesn't invalidate how you feel or what your beliefs are about this other person by not acting on those impulses. Okay, it's not about them. It's about getting your goals. Okay, number 3. Number 3 is another skill that I would like to call, and it's called avoiding. Try interpersonal skills. Now, this tip can be used if you believe that you and your roommate or your loved one or whoever you're sharing a living arrangement with can have an open and frank conversation. And ways to assess that are they pretty logical? Are they reasonable? maybe they're not. Maybe they drink, maybe they're half drunk every day. Maybe they have a huge anger problem and then you're afraid to talk to them. But in DBT, they say, avoid avoiding, which means avoid getting yourself into a situation where you never do anything to solve that situation. And how that applies here is that sometimes just having a open and frank conversation can really diffuse the situation, clear the air, clear the tension. If you're feeling uncomfortable living in your place, then most likely your roommate or your other person that you're sharing a space with also feels that way, right? So it could, and check the facts, you can check the facts here. For instance, when I was married, he had a coworker, and this coworker never liked him from the beginning. It was awkward, they worked in a pretty small space. There wasn't a lot of them. They saw each other pretty frequently, a couple times a week at least. And he's like, I just don't know why this guy doesn't like me. This guy doesn't like me. And then he said, one day he was like, well, this is just silly. Like, I'm just going to ask him, like, what's going on between the two of us, And then he did. And this guy was like, well, I heard that you said this about me and didn't like me. And my ex-husband was like, really? Because I heard this about me that you didn't like me. And then they were both like, well, none of that was true ever. And then the problem went away, right? So it was this huge misunderstanding from the beginning. They had an open conversation. Now, one of them, it's not hard to be that person that gets, steps in and says, hey, I'd like to talk to you about this, but it works, right? But it can only work if the other person is receptive to it. So I would recommend trying it if you feel safe in doing so. And if the other person is receptive, wonderful. If the other person is not receptive, well, it doesn't mean that you're a loser, that it didn't work out. Don't forget, you could use your skills 100% all of the time, like a grade A hitter, and somebody's just not going to be receptive. Does not reflect on you whatsoever. Things that you could say could be like, hey man, are you going to be home later? I'd really like to talk to you. I think you may be feeling the same way, and it's really my goal to kind of diffuse the energy and tension around here. Maybe we could just work something out so that we could both feel comfortable. Would you have time for that later? Or, hey man, can I buy you a beer later? Or maybe they come home and, you can get a pizza and be like, hey, I bought a pizza. Could we sit down? I would like to talk to you. Also, make sure it's the right time to ask for what you need. I've done this other video called How to Assert Yourself. And one of the goals that can really assist you in accomplishing these kinds of conversations is to making sure it's the right time for both of you. So perhaps the best time of day is not when you've both just come home from a long day at work and it's been stressful and you're both hungry. Probably not the most opportune time. But maybe say at 11 a.m. on a Saturday where you're both just kind of lounging around and you're not you don't have anywhere to be right away. Maybe that could be the more accessible time. Okay, number 4. So let's say that you have tried to speak with this person and it didn't work out, or they don't want to speak with you. Okay, then I would say your second tip, as long as you have to be in this situation, or excuse me, the fourth tip, if you have to be in this situation, is to actually try avoiding. So by that, I mean different schedules. I don't mean, don't ignore them all. You can be cordial, you can be civil. Hello, yes. Oh, yes, of course. I can, the bathroom's yours now, I'll open, whatever. And you don't necessarily have to officially let them know that you are trying to avoid them by using different schedules. So by different schedules, I just mean that you are simply, before you can make this permanent change, whether one of you moves out or something like that you're just going to do things that make it physically and emotionally safe for you to be there. So try to see if it's possible that you can be on opposite schedules. So if your roommate says, let's say they're in the restaurant industry, and they work from 4 p.m. to midnight every day, well, maybe that's the best time for you to be at home to feel more at ease. And by the time you go to bed, they've come home they're ready to go to bed and you're waking up, or, you know, like whatever. Um, just so that you can stay safe in your home, feel at ease, you know, or at least put yourself in a, you know, at least your room can be yours, right? Now, obviously, I haven't had to ever go this far in a situation, but I certainly am a proponent of cameras, locks. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, if people don't have anything to hide, then they shouldn't have to worry about a camera being, you know, you can just put like a $50 camera in the top corner of your bedroom. I mean, it's pretty easy. Again, the end game here is keeping yourself safe and making sure that you reach your goals. And the fifth tip is sort of kind of a no-brainer, which is, you know, keep using your skills, keep using your self-care, keep using your DBT. I've done a bunch of videos on DBT skills, and you can check them out by module. They have the different playlists. So I've already completed mindfulness, and now I'm moving into the interpersonal effectiveness. Specifically in these kinds of stressful environments, emotional regulation and distress tolerance, when interpersonal effectiveness is not working whatsoever, can be very useful, right? If the relationship is no longer what you're after, if it's not salvageable, then keeping yourself emotionally regulated and, you know, working on your distress tolerance skills. So again, you don't knock the person out, or you don't get in a fight, or you don't get kicked out, or, you know, they don't do something irrational, or you don't do something irrational. You're just trying to stay untriggered. And that means knowing what those triggers are. I mean, you know, if you are compounded every day by the annoyance of somebody that you live with, combined with not feeling safe where you live, then the likelihood that something explosive could happen is pretty high, you know, especially if you're not feeling well, or, you know, you're laid off right now due to the pandemic, or you're wondering where your stimulus check is. Again, the goal here is to keep yourself safe and use skills that can help you overcome. Skills that I've used in some of these living situations were baths, spa times. Those are very relaxing to me. You know, watching certain TV shows at certain times that I know would relax me. My pets are very relaxing to me. Other self-care would be making sure I'm eating and sleeping properly. It's what works for you to keep you regulated and baselined. And it is a really I'm with you. You know, it's a crap situation if you have to be in a living situation right now where either you don't like the home itself, or you don't like the landlord, or you don't like the person that you're living with. You know, I get it. I've been in all three of those situations. But it can be changed, it can be managed. Please let me know if any of these 5 tips have been helpful to you. I'd love to hear your comments below. Maybe share some experience about some living situations that you've had with others and how you've managed those. That might be helpful to other people that are watching these videos, because they may have the same question that you do. My name's Jen. You've been watching BPD Woman. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell below if you haven't already. Again, I produce about 3 to 5 videos each week, always something new. And until I speak with you next time, please, and whatever you do, stay effective.